Hello, everyone. My name is Akua Hinds, and right now you're watching an episode of Akua Hinds Online. The date is August 23rd, and I am joined by North America's favorite ontological coach and producer, Michelle Bacani-Lim. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Akua.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, you're welcome.
Our online hug.
Yeah. And Michelle, I think I asked you if we could do something called what I'm calling this is it's called 20 Questions with Miki Grace, because Michelle's company name is Miki Grace and Associates, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about that,
Absolutely.
about her company. But I really want you as a viewer to get to know Michelle a little bit more. Right now we're at Michelle's home office in Peel Region in Ontario, in Canada, and I live in Peel Region as well, and I would love for all of our viewers all over in Australia, in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, all over.
That's so awesome, by the way. Congratulations on having all those fans.
Thank you so much. And
Michelle, a lot of them are famous.
A lot of them are. It's true. And Michelle has a lot of fans as well on her channel, which I'll give her a chance to mention and to put in a plug for that.
Thank you.
This show is going to be, and you're welcome, by the way, this show is going to be done in parts. So this is the first part of the 20 Questions with Miki Grace, and there'll be other videos following. So this is part 1. So one of the questions I have for Michelle is jealousy a sign that proves that a person loves you? What's your opinion on that, Michelle? I'm curious.
A tough question. I've been in relationships before where there's been a lot of jealousy. And I think that's the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, what is love? How does somebody perceive love? And I have to say, no, I don't think that jealousy is a sign that a person loves you necessarily. But I do think jealousy is a sign of a lower sense of self-esteem. And I've been reading a book, actually, by Nathaniel Braden, which is called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. It's somewhere in my office here. And it's a really cool book. I haven't finished it. It's actually pretty deep. I can only read probably one page at a time because of the depth of it. But one of the things he talks about is that self-esteem is like the well-being of your emotions and mindset, and just how having a strong self-esteem or strong confidence really lends to attract to you the type of people that you're going to be in a relationship with. So if we look at jealousy is really has to do with the ego. It really has to do with somebody's sense of self and how they perceive themselves.
Now, do you think it has to do with fear at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. I mean, if you look at the ego, and I've kind of taught myself not to hate my ego and not to strike it down and put myself down for it, because it is a part of who I am, right? Just like your shadow is a part of it. I mean, people consider the ego also it's sometimes synonymous with the shadow.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's some people that consider your ego like your shadow. And so is it fear? I believe so. I think jealousy in a way is, fear of not enough. And that's really what a lot of sort of essence, like in the same way that I feel essence, somebody's pure essence comes back down to love, which is what people are in whole. In the same way, it's either love or fear. You're operating out of love or fear. And jealousy, which can be represented in so many different ways, in my opinion, I believe represents fear. Yeah. So I do agree with you on that.
Well, that's good to know. That's really good to know. And what is your opinion on this? Should exes try to remain friends, or should they cut all ties and move on from each other?
Oh my goodness.
I know, really deep,
I'm going to hammer myself into the coffin now. It's a tough question, and I can only speak from my own personal example.
Right, and we were talking about this, we won't name names, but we do know some people who are maybe twice our age, older generation, who have, and we've read articles about this, and we know some people who've reached out to people from their past using
we did talk about that.
social media,
Facebook.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
gonna be the end of all the relationships. Just kidding. We were discussing that. Let's bring it up.
Do you think that that's an okay thing to do? Should you reach out to your ex and try to remain friends, even though there's a lot of history there?
Let's talk about that first part, and then we'll go into Facebook specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough, you know. It goes back to the old question: can men and women be friends? I think it starts with that. You know, can men and women really be friends? And how many movies have there been about that? How many songs have been written about that?
Oh my gosh.
And it's a tough question to ask. I personally, in my own opinion, if you were to ask me, it's really tough. I don't know that I'd want to. I hope they're not watching, but I don't know that I'd want to necessarily be friends with exes, just simply because there's so much history there. There's so much in the past, and there's hurts, and there's feelings, and some of them are expressed, or some of them might be unexpressed. Disappointments, and expectations, and not to mention if you're already in a relationship. I'm going to confess to you, I probably, you know, relating back to the two questions you asked, I probably would be jealous if my husband was friends with his ex.
Yes.
And it's, you know, and I'm going to confess to you, like it's happened in the past before where exes have tried to get in touch with me, or exes have tried to get in touch with my husband, and it's not super comfortable. And I think you have to have that conversation. You know, people make fun of me because I always say that, you know, there's a conversation to be had. And I feel that way in this case. Like, it's tough to answer that question without looking at the situation specifically.
Does it bother you that bothers you about exes reaching out to you and your husband and you know, just being in the picture again?
I don't think it bothers me. Like, I know my husband is still friends with some of his exes, you know, is on Facebook. We can talk about it. My ex-boyfriend, you know, one of my ex-boyfriends, is actually very courteous and really nice. And he called me when I got engaged to my husband.
Oh, that's
he
nice.
called me when I got married. You know, I still know about his family. I hear about them from time to time, and it's nice. You know, that's nice. But does it bother me? I don't know that I want to be friends with them. You know, I don't know.
Acquaintances, maybe?
Acquaintances, maybe. But maybe if the relationship ended in a different way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
You know, with some relationships that I've been in, it ended because there was just a loss of interest, you know, or just kind of, you know, moving apart, just kind of a shifting of values and principles, and just being in different states in your life. So I don't even know if I want to be friends with them. You know, we all kind of graduate and kind of move on from different phases in our life. So it really depends. However, if I had been in a tremendous, amazing relationship with my best friend, who, you know, I had a great relationship with as a best friend previously, and then we turned it into, like, I'm just thinking of like a movie, for example.
Right.
You know, you start out as a best friend, and then you guys have a relationship, and then you've had that experience of them as a best friend and a relationship. Maybe that would make sense for you.
Okay.
So I don't know if I answered the question, and I kind of feel like I'm playing footsie on these questions here back and forth. But
no, I think
I hope I'm being fair.
You are definitely, and maybe we'll have to revisit that question at some point in the future, just to see if your mind has changed on that, or if your feelings have changed.
Absolutely.
Next question that I have for you, Michelle, is many people feel that a man should lead a home, family, and a relationship. Do you feel that men should be the leaders in their relationship, or should they be co-leading with their wives and girlfriends?
Well, I think you're asking kind of I wouldn't say I'm a feminist. I wouldn't say that but I do support women. I support, you know, women having equality, obviously.
Right.
And I also come from a family where my husband is the stay-at-home dad. So it's a very different nature. I also grew up in a family where my dad was the main cook, and that's usually how women are perceived. Right. You know, my husband is a huge component of our homeschooling team. You know, he does the majority of homeschooling for my children. And so, yes, I do believe men are the leaders in many ways. And I do see my husband in that way, but I also see him as a partner as well.
Okay.
So I think it depends on the family, and I wouldn't. There are certain aspects of my life and our relationship that I feel I really rely on my husband for that. I want to say masculine energy, and I think that's something to also consider as well.
Definitely. It's interesting because I think that, you know, do you feel that being the leader means that a woman has to submit to a man every single time?
No, no, I don't see leadership as that as at all. I mean, I see that as, to look at submitting, I look at that as a dictatorship, which would be
I do
completely
too.
different.
Yeah.
I always like explaining relationships and the equality in relationships. I use the example of the yokes. I think in the Bible they talk
Yes.
about evenly yoked. And I remember when my parents taught me that in a relationship, the relationship should be evenly yoked. It's just in the Philippines we have caribou. Caribou, we call them carabao in the Philippines. Caribou, which are they use them for their animals, which they use. They look like buffalo, kind of.
Yeah.
and they use them to till the ground. And they would have these yokes that they would put on these caribou. And so the caribou, you'd have two of them, and they'd have to be evenly yoked, because if it wasn't, then they wouldn't be doing their job effectively. And in the same way, I don't know, I've always perceived that in my family life and in my relationship with my husband, that it needs to be evenly yoked. We're all contributing our own fair share.
Good to know. You're welcome. And the next question I have for you, question 4 out of 20, is many people find it difficult to forgive themselves and forgive other people for wrongdoings. Do you have any forgiveness exercises that you recommend to help people heal and move forward?
I do. And I will say that there are a lot of healings that I still have to do. There's a lot of forgiveness that I still have to give, including myself. Including myself. So I do have exercises for that. One of them is a communication clearing exercise, which I find hugely valuable. And it's basically a set of questions that I go through either with a friend or with my husband. I mean, I've used it consistently with my husband in periods of time for like up to 6 weeks and even longer. And it's made a huge impact, because really, I mean, one of the questions in that, just to give you an example of one of the questions, is what are you making me wrong for? So it's communicating to the person the ways that, you know, that you might be looking for forgiveness.
Okay.
So that's one of the exercises. Another exercise is one that's called a completion exercise. And the way to look at that is, if there's certain areas where you've been expending your energy because you haven't forgiven someone, because you still feel hurt about something, completion allows you to release that.
Beautiful.
By doing these specific exercises.
Beautiful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to get information on that, they can absolutely email me at mikigracecoaching@gmail.com, and maybe you can put that into the YouTube link there.
Definitely. And Michelle also has a Facebook page.
Right? I do. If you check out the Facebook page, it's Facebook.com/the Miki Grace.
And Miki Grace is spelled Mikigrace.
Yeah.
And
the lights are making me sweat, so don't
really
mind me. I'm getting a
you
little
look fabulous.
Thanks.
Fabulous. You're welcome. The 5th question I have, and the last question for this part 1 of 20 questions with Miki Grace, you're welcome, is what is the best thing about owning your own business? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Oh my gosh, I hope that I can go on for a little bit longer, but I'll try to keep it short. Oh wow, I mean, I've been a business owner now for, my son is turning 8, so both my husband and myself have pretty much been self-employed for those 8 years.
And you have 2 children.
And I have 2 children.
Your oldest is 8.
Tristan is 8, and Brooklyn has just turned 6.
Right.
And so I love running my own business. I absolutely love it. I think the freedom that I get, now I work mainly, as we shared earlier, as a producer, a consultant in media sales, really, as well as coaching and training. And it allows me to utilize my skill set and my resources in the best way possible to serve my clients, to kind of structure things in a way that I probably wouldn't be able to do if I was working in a typical 9 to 5 salary position.
Right.
I'm also able to really adjust my schedule accordingly. It's the reason why we homeschool. I get to see my children for a large, not a large portion of the day or the week, but there's weeks when I'm working a lot more than usual, but it's
Working from home
amazing
and
working from
also
home.
working at the
And I also
studio.
work at the studio as well,
Right.
and it's a blessing. I absolutely love it.
That is
Yeah.
wonderful. And on that note, we'll end off this first part. So grab a snack or go, go to the washroom or do what you need to do and come back. Make sure you come back for part 2 of 20 Questions with Miki Grace on Akua Hinds online. Catch you soon.